Something you may hear from patients who are ethically inclined is you may hear several things in response to pushing back to the coronavirus vaccine. And before we get into testing, we'll start from the things that are just so easy, just completely false, easy to respond to. So the first thing you may hear is squalene. Squalene, there's an article published that the coronavirus vaccine may have squalene in it. Some of the companies that are still in phase 1-2 testing do have squalene in it. Neither the Pfizer nor the Moderna vaccine does have any squalene in it. The concern there is that it's harvested from sharks in the majority of cases. So while it is true that several companies that are developing a vaccine are using it, it's the overwhelming minority of companies. And the companies that look like they're developing a vaccine that will make it to market do not have this product in it. So no sharks are being harmed for the coronavirus vaccine that you will be getting, almost certainly. The other thing you may hear is the most general question: does it contain any animal products? According to the NHS, the COVID-19 vaccine, there it's referring to the Pfizer vaccine. It does not contain any animal products. The same thing is true for Moderna. According to the Vaccines and Regulated Biological Product Advisory Committee, which was on December 17th, 2020, it was the meeting presentation for the emergency use authorization. The application for the mRNA 1273, which is the Moderna vaccine, quote, the manufacturing process is cell-free and contains no human or animal products, preservatives or adjuvants. Now, you may hear, okay, well, if that's true, then how does it have cholesterol? So you'll notice that if you look at the ingredient list, whether it's the Pfizer vaccine or the Moderna vaccine, one of the ingredients you'll see is cholesterol. Well, I thought that that's only from animal products. How is that there? So actually, the supplier, when I track this down, the suppliers actually do have plant-based cholesterol. And how did they get that? They have the sterols in the plants and they synthetically modify them into cholesterol. So one of the suppliers of antipolar lipids, their product, you can look this up, vantilipids.com/product/700100. They actually sell a plant-based cholesterol. So yeah, you can take the sterols from plants and you can make a vegan cholesterol, and that's in the vaccine. So even the cholesterol is vegan. All right, so there's no animal products in the vaccine, just to make that absolutely clear to every one of your ethically inclined patients. This does not have animal products, and even the classically recognized animal products are not animal products for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine. The next thing you'll hear, and this is where we're going to get into most of the meat of the talk, is for animal testing. So you're like, okay, it doesn't have any animal products. I'm not creating any additional demand, but okay, but what about the animal testing? I reject all sorts of products in my life that are tested on animals. Why is this any different? There's a number of reasons why it's different. The first, so before we get into why it's different, let's get into what happened. So yes, there was animal testing like any other pharmaceutical product that's required for FDA approval. How many animals were tested on? It depends which vaccine you're talking about. For the Pfizer vaccine, their organization was 6 mice per group, and they had 4 groups, which were a total of 32 mice. They also tested on rhesus macaques, those are monkeys. They had 6 per group, 3 groups total, 21, and additional 3 for non-immunized matched monkeys for additional testing, gives you 21 rhesus macaques total. Pfizer tested 2 vaccines. One was called BNT162b1. The other one is called BNT162b2. If you add them all up together, you can get 64 mice, 42 rhesus macaques, a total animal count of 106 animals that were tested on. Okay. The Moderna preclinical data isn't as descriptive in terms of how many animals were tested on, but they used a very similar protocol. we can infer that the numbers weren't that far off. Why is this not analogous to rejection of other products? There are several reasons. Number one, you're not creating more demand. So it's not like when you look at cosmetic products. If you purchase a cosmetic product that's been the company tests on animals, they have a tendency to say, okay, you're going to have our sales, and then we're going to have another product that we're going to put in the line once the sales peter out. We're going to have the next best hit, and then we're going to test on more animals. You can understand how you purchase this product. You are funding additional testing. This is not how it works in preclinical testing for approved pharmaceuticals. The testing is already done. You taking the vaccine is not going to incentivize anyone else to test this vaccine on further animals. In fact, if anything, it may do the opposite. If anything, what will happen is in the analytics, the companies will see that there's an additional piece of the pie of population that are unvaccinated. And then there'll be in the analysis, they'll be, okay, well, maybe we should go and take this vaccine that we have our product and test it on more animals because there's an additional piece of the pie that's an unvaccinated population. So if anything, in contrast to the cosmetic industry that tests on animals, not only will you not create demand for more animal testing by taking the vaccine, if anything, if there was any argument, you may actually create demand by not taking the vaccine for more animal testing. That's point one. Point two is, even if you were in the case, even if you somehow were hypothetically in the situation where it was a decision of testing on animals or not having a vaccine, that's not the situation you're in. That's a fairy tale. The situation we're in is it's already done. But even if that were the case, it would be hard to imagine not doing this. And here's why. I'm not going to defend animal testing. I think it is unfortunate what happened to those animals. In many cases, if not all cases, the animals are euthanized when this does happen. After the fact, they're harvested for their tissue, for histology and whatnot. However, if you contrast that to the number of people saved, and the expected number of people saved, it's astronomical. So Pfizer's estimated capacity by the end of 2021 is 1.3 billion doses. That's actually higher now because we have fortunate news that each vial of the vaccine contains an additional dose. We thought it would be 5 doses. Now it's 6 doses. So there's a 20% increase in what the estimated supply would be. But even without that, the estimated capacity that Pfizer has is about 650 million, enough to vaccinate 650 million people. So it's 1.3 billion doses. Moderna has a capacity in 2021 of about 1 billion doses. Both are two doses, so that's enough to vaccinate an additional, with Moderna, additional 500 million people. Now, if you look, I'll share my screen. So if you look at let me know if this is coming through.
Yep, it's coming.
Is it working?
Yep.
Yeah,
it's
working.
Cool. All right. So this is the efficacy data for the Pfizer vaccine. And you'll see this is a cumulative incidence of those who had received the placebo versus those who had received BNT162b2. BNT162b2 is the vaccine that Pfizer is going to be going with. That's the vaccine that you will be getting, not BNT162b1. This difference over here is going to be the absolute risk reduction. It's the absolute risk reduction, but keep in mind it's the absolute risk reduction for 112 days, how long this ran for. You can extrapolate this to get a number needed to vaccinate. So just like number needed to treat is 1 divided by the absolute risk reduction, 1 divided by the absolute incidence, the absolute incidence here would be the absolute risk reduction is going to be the number needed to vaccinate. It estimates around 52.6 people. That means if you vaccinate 650 million people, you get over 12 million people who would have otherwise gotten the disease in the next 112 days to not get it. Now, in reality, this is even greater because we have additional supply, but we'll get to that shortly. Now, if you prevent this many infections, how many deaths will you prevent? Well, you look at the infection fatality ratio. Infection fatality ratios are variable across countries. They're variable across continents as well. The average, if you average it all out, it comes around to be about 0.6%. That means if you get, on average, if you take all the old people, the young people, people with pre-existing conditions, people without pre-existing conditions, across the globe, you will get around a 0.6% infection fatality ratio, which will come out in 112 days. That comes out to about 74,144 lives saved. Now, this is an underestimation. Why is this an underestimation? It's an underestimation because we're not vaccinating this way. We're not randomly vaccinating. We're prioritizing people who are high risk first. We're prioritizing healthcare workers. We're prioritizing elderly patients. So this number is assuming that we're randomly vaccinating. If we assume a linear relationship and we extrapolate it out to 1 year, because this is only what we would expect in 112 days, it would translate into over 200,000 lives saved in 1 year. And 5 years and 10 years ago is far, far greater as opposed to if we did nothing. Now, this doesn't even consider, this is just on a per life basis. So even if you want to take issue with the 106 animals that were tested on, you would have to square that away, even just on a per life basis. We would expect in 1 year that you would be saving around 2,279, over 2,000 lives per life tested on. Any utilitarian would sign off on this. Many threshold deontologists would sign off on this, even if this was the case. But it's not just the case that all vegans just care about a life is a life is a life. Many vegans also recognize that what they care about is sentience, and not every life has equal sentience. Is there a way we could equalize this sentience differential? Now, even without doing that, I'll just point out that the case is already incredibly strong, just in this utilitarian calculus. If you are testing one to save 2,000 lives in 1 year, and potentially in 10 years over 20,000 lives, these numbers are underestimations by everything we know. But even that, many would sign off on it. However, if you think about it, the quality of the life that's going to be lived, the type of life that's going to be lived, the degree of experience is not the same for humans as it is for these other animals. So there's no perfect way to equalize that because we can't live in the minds of any of these other creatures. However, there are rough correlates that we can use. They're not going to be perfect because they're correlates. That's what correlates are. However, what you can do is you can have several different sentience correlates to equalize, try and at least approximate the equalization of sentience in terms of how much sentience equivalence life was tested on versus sentience equivalence life was saved. One way of doing this is cortical neuron count. Other ways of doing that is cortical synapse count. It's not perfect because not all parts of the cortex correlate with that type of experience. But to spare you the calculations, although they are on the screen, what it comes out to after all is said and done is that these 106 animals that were tested on, summated together, would have the equivalent of just above 3 humans worth of cortical neurons. Putting that all back into the picture, in 1 year, if we equalize it in terms of per being tested on to the sentience equivalent of human saved, you test on one, and in 1 year, you will expect 77,000 saved. Now, these calculations are underestimations for several reasons. Number one, there's an increase in supply of the Pfizer vaccine that we didn't know of before, about 20%. There's an extra dose in each vial. Number two, we're not going to be vaccinating randomly. We are prioritizing people who have a higher infection fatality ratio. So that's also going to be an even greater amount of lives saved. But just to put this in perspective to you, if people have different views in the classical trolley problem, where if you could pull the lever, if you save one person versus the 5, some people will say no. But if you scale it up enough and you say, okay, well, how many individuals would you sign off on testing if it would save a given amount? This stadium, just take a look at this massive stadium just filled with people, just to put like something just over 70,000 in perspective for you. Like this entire stadium is 72,000 people. It would look crazy to not test on one individual to save that many people. It would just look insane, let alone if the individual was already tested on and it was already all said and done. If you're not even going to make that decision. If someone asks you, okay, well, it's per individual already tested on, you can save a stadium of people. It's nuts to not do that. If you're a vegan for a utilitarian reason, it's crazy not to do that. If you're a vegan for a threshold deontic reason, it's crazy not to do that. In almost any sensible normative theory that would lead one to veganism, it would be insane not to engage in taking this vaccine.